Hey, good morning. Hey,
Morning.
Morning.
Marianne. Hey, Justin. How you doing today?
Good.
Pretty good.
All right.
Chilly Thursday.
Chilly day. I know it's kind of winter's coming, right? So, um, before we get dive in, I was supposed to say thanks for our regular viewers. We're getting some really great feedback from folks. People are watching, getting some comments back. We're seeing some also on our YouTube channel. Just to kind of put in perspective, maybe if you don't know who Valiant is, Valiant, we're a managed service provider, IT managed service provider here in New York. We have clients all over the country, so we kind of have a deep reach and a deep bench, and that's why we do a lot of this kind of content. We think it's really important. So please check us out on our YouTube channel. We also have a new webpage that kind of puts all together. It's thevaliantway.com/live. And it keeps all of our events, all of our kind of video, all of our content will be there for these kind of live streams. Now I just want to introduce Marianne. Marianne's our training manager, and Justin Machina is our CIO on George Dotterman. And today our topic is going to be one that is kind of a little esoteric on one level, but very topical on the other, and that is tech debt. So, Justin, Marianne, what's tech debt? What does it do? How does it work? It seems like a term that's kicked around a lot, but I don't think it's defined very well for a lot of folks or practically applied. So,
Hmm.
take us away.
Yeah. Tech debt is a way of thinking about maintaining your IT infrastructure systems, your technology by applying the same concepts that you would apply towards, financial debt or any other kind of debt where you have those diminishing returns and uh, pieces like that. And when we compare it to financial debt, we really think of two core pieces. The first is the principal, like you would in any other kind of loan or debt, and that is the work and technology that the stuff that you need to have implemented in order to support your business, your operations, your
Hmm.
infrastructure, all your stuff. Uh, then on top of that, you think of interest, and interest is, we can think of it as the complexity tax in a way, the stuff that you need to do in order to, almost in a way, to maintain the pieces that you have.
Hmm.
So the work that goes into keeping it up to date, or keeping things renewed, or keeping things running.
Right. It's,
Hmm.
it's just the day-to-day costs
Yeah.
of managing, maintaining, and using the things you implement.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah. And that definitely makes sense. I mean, people sometimes just want the upfront cost to be low, and everyone knows that you do need to look into like maintenance and what's the ongoing cost and things like that. So,
Right. I
Yeah.
think
Yeah, so you need to combine that principal and that
yep.
interest, just like you would, like, let's say, a car loan or anything else. You combine
Yep.
the overall to get the overall spend that you're going to have over a course of time, to
Hmm.
figure out what it's going to cost to keep and maintain the systems that you have.
Hmm.
right, right, and so in some ways it's like it's kind of really having like a total cost of ownership.
Mhm.
What does it really have to keep these things going? And so with that being said, like how does tech occur? Like what how does it happen?
So there's really every business is going to have some level of tech debt.
Sure.
Just like every organization is going to have some level. Just like you have every organization has some level of financial debt. It's something that you plan for and you maintain and you manage. So you're not constantly refreshing everything and doing everything all the time. But you do want to avoid getting into a situation where you are spending all of your money on paying all of your money towards interest, or spending more than 50% on your IT budget of just maintaining the things that you have instead of growing and innovating.
Yep.
And there's really four ways that you can find yourself in that situation. The first is due to strategy. If you don't have a good tech strategy for how you're going to implement your systems, what you're going to implement, what you're going to need, you can quickly find yourself spending money on something that you don't really need, and not spending money on something that you do, and leaving yourself in a bad situation.
Right.
Hmm.
So,
And also, I mean, I think part of that is taking into account, what IT things are an important part of your business and things like that. And also just the know-how. I mean, that's what we talked about last week. We talked about budgeting and things like that. So we actually did develop a nice budget sheet, and it's important to like, it's a free tool, so use it, and you can IT budget planning template, and you can use that and then help you develop a strategy. It's like one of the first steps, just to make sure you know what you have and what you're spending money on
Right.
now.
Right.
Yeah,
Exactly.
and the strategy is not always sometimes it's, can be a complicated thing to put together, but sometimes it's just noticing simple things. The biggest one that we see, I would say, is companies that are spending money on multiple tools that do the same thing.
Sure.
We've seen clients that have both Office 365 and Google and Dropbox and Ignite. Like
Box.
those are, yeah, and Box, and
Right.
like all of those are great products. Why do you need all five of them? Why, can we combine that into four or three or two or one and save
Mhm.
that spend and put that spend towards something else? So that's just,
Right.
just straight up not having a cohesive strategy to address the needs, and letting that kind of grow can sap the funds that you have for your IT budget and
Mhm.
leave you in a position where you can't uh, do the projects you need to do.
Mhm.
Also, also, I
Mhm.
think a lot of times people come to those places from frustration because the current solutions not meeting the needs. People are looking backwards
Mhm.
versus looking forwards to what's happening in
Mhm.
the business. I know a lot of times we see that where things the shadow IT debt is a
Yeah.
lack of strategic planning on management or kind
Yeah.
of like
Yeah.
of like the leadership role. So that I
And
think
Yeah.
is a really common
mhm.
thing.
And that's another part of strategy is sometimes, I mean, you could be paying for something that's being underutilized, and that could be something that people just need to be trained on. They need to understand how they can use it to improve their workflows.
Right.
I'm sorry, I'm always going to bring it back to training, but
Yeah.
that is I
Right.
mean, that one's a
Or
little less. It's harder to quantify, but like, you're spending money on this, but it's not actually saving you the efficiency that it's supposed to because it hasn't been utilized. So
Right.
that's an
mhm.
important part of it too.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it does roll into the second area where we see what causes a company or organization to have excessive tech debt, and that's the architecture of
Sure.
the systems that are there. Especially if you've got legacy systems that have been put in place to do a specific job, but now are aging and require a lot of maintenance to maintain, or that have downtime from
Hmm.
things failing. That can then cause additional problems. Uh, Back end systems that are not up to date, things that are built in a I don't say clunky manner, but a lot of times we'll see when we're bringing on a new client, we'll see this environment that is over engineered and underutilized, but also not doing the things it's supposed to do. So you'll
Hmm.
see, this thing has system has uh, uh, amazing redundancy in, let's say, a hard drive setup, but it doesn't have enough RAM and processor to do the job, or things like that. And these
Right.
legacy systems can, as they're kept in place, it just costs more and more to maintain them.
Sure. Yeah.
And
Also, a lot of times they're built they're built in languages or applications that are no longer even supported or are
mhm,
barely supported. I think that ties real deep into what the next one I know this causes a lot, which is a lack of talent. And I,
mhm,
I
Yeah.
think I think I know what you're talking about, Justin, in the case you're discussing. Um, and even that whole setup was just the language that the application was built in is
mhm.
so foreign and unusual
Mm.
that you couldn't find people to do the work if you
Yeah.
wanted to.
Yeah, if you've got a custom legacy app that is, requires a full-time employee in order to maintain the application, that, is a very expensive prospect to
Yeah.
have. But, if it's and there are certainly use cases where you need that, but you also then need to budget for that and need to budget for all the pieces that go around it to build the system that goes with it, versus having something more modern that is where you can have less of a oversight on and more of a maintenance on, and that uh, costs less money overall than having to
Hmm.
have somebody full time just to run a program.
Well, can
Absolutely.
talent also apply to, the people not being able to, you're not getting what you need out of your people with the technology. So like, you also have
Mhm.
to make sure that if you have Linux-based systems, you're going to have to hire someone who knows Linux rather than, someone who doesn't know it that well.
Mhm.
It's a penguin thing. No? No? All
Yeah.
right. Unix. That's
Exactly.
Unix.
Yeah.
No, exactly right.
Definitely. Yeah, it can limit having an esoteric system means that you either have to hire people that know that esoteric system, or to go back to your point before, and is invest in training in that esoteric system versus,
Yeah.
you could put on a job posting knows Excel, and you're going to get plenty of people that know Excel way more than if you put on there knows this custom in-house application that we run that only we have. You have to invest
Yeah.
in that. So there's
Yeah,
pros
that
and
makes
cons,
sense.
but it's, yeah, you have to account for that, and it's a really easy way to accrue uh, debt from that by having that kind of system, because
Right.
it has to be maintained and built up in a very specific way, and you
Mhm.
have to have
Right.
the people available to do it.
Absolutely.
And then
And
there's also this next one, which I
Mhm,
think we've been focusing on a lot in the past couple of years, is process, the
mhm.
tech debt of process that's caused by process. So I don't know if you want to
Yes.
hit on that a little.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. By not having a system in place to prioritize and manage what IT projects, what systems you're going to work on, you end up being in a very reactive place where you are fixing things that are broken instead of making sure that things don't break or that things work. It's like putting out fires instead of installing fireproofing. And
Right.
Sure.
there's always going to be the thing that breaks. There's always going to be something that happens, but ideally you want to limit that and avoid that, so that upgrades and things can happen in a planned, in a prescribed manner. The
Hmm.
I I would tell people, like, look, if the upgrade is gonna you have to upgrade this software, let's say, and we're gonna need 5 hours of downtime to upgrade the software. And your choices are, we could plan 5 hours of downtime to upgrade that software, or we could wait for it to break and hope that when it breaks, it's not in the middle of,
Something important and
right. It's not when you
Busiest
have the
season.
yeah,
Right.
busy signal. It's not when you have your report due. It's not when you have a big pitch happening in 10 minutes.
hmm
We want to be able to plan around it, so we can say this service is going to be unavailable at this time, and
Sure.
then it's going to be working after that. And that's,
Also,
I mean, bare basics of having a process rather than waiting for things to fail on
Right.
their own.
yeah, and that's some of the principles we talk about security and budgeting and all this stuff. Is there's some proactive measures to preventative measures,
Mhm.
but then you also want to reduce the amount of time it takes to recover, to resume. If something does happen, that's part of your process.
Mhm.
Is if we do need to go to the next step, we already have these steps in place, so we can just
Mhm.
get to it.
Yeah. It's
Yeah,
it
and ties
was.
strongly into having documentation for those things,
Documentation. Yeah.
so that,
Yeah.
and again, we're going to go back to connecting it to the previous one of having the talent, having the employees that can do stuff. To have an employee that knows everything about a system and they're the only one. Well, what happens if the day that it breaks is the week that they're on vacation? You're either
Right.
ruining their vacation or waiting for
Sure.
them to come back. So having
Mhm.
that process to document the workflows, document the procedures, document everything,
Mhm.
means that you can handle those transitions and handle those issues a lot better.
And you can
Yeah.
refer back to it and get stuff done
Mhm.
faster. And yeah, definitely.
I think documentation is like the one of the core differentiators between many organizations. Just
Sure.
ourselves. We've gone through like we use a documentation platform and we're on iteration 3 of the
Mhm.
setup of it,
Mhm.
because each time we do it, we pay off tech debt on the on that documentation so that we can be more efficient and keep
Mhm.
our clients in a better spot. So, you know, we've been working on the same system for 5+ years, but as I said,
Mhm.
this is like the third iteration of it,
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah.
because you have to it's the way we kind of saw it was that it wasn't doing exactly what we wanted to do. So let's go back, rebuild it, and pay off the debt with interest. Maybe put some money in the
Yep.
bank in savings, because we've seen the benefit going forward
Mhm.
because of the efficiencies we can drive
Oh,
out of that.
absolutely. And yeah, our new system definitely saves time. It makes it a lot easier for people to refer to old things, so they're not repeating work. But like you said, we had to put into work to do it. We had to take man hours
Correct.
to make sure that
Mhm.
it was correct. We had to purchase pay for the service and all
The
that stuff.
service.
So
Correct.
yep.
It's right up front.
Yeah.
So um
Yeah. Good.
No, go ahead, Mary, please.
No, I was gonna say, like, we've talked a little bit about like where these come up, but I wanted to move on to, what some of the issues that can come up with it, just
Sure.
so we can get the little scare tactic in before we get with the solutions.
Exactly.
Yeah. To me, the biggest one is the potential for lost opportunities. I mean, same
Sure.
thing. If you have a system outage, uh, when you have a RFP due and you miss the RFP deadline because your server was your
Exactly.
server was unavailable, you're not getting that business. That's not going to happen. I mean,
Sure.
it's we want to be able to keep systems to be reliable so that doesn't happen. But
Well,
some of
not
the
even
more
uptime, but being able to be the new hotness and being able to offer something new and differentiate yourself from the competition, or
Mhm.
in the very least not fall behind the competition,
Yeah,
Right.
and we're seeing a lot now that for a lot of our clients, there are more security requirements than there used to be, and
Yeah.
just to be able to win certain business, they have to be able to prove certain security benchmarks that they didn't have before. So being able
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
easily
To be
do
up to
those
date.
things
Yeah.
so that we can do that.
And it's company, and the client, and it's companies you wouldn't even assume would be quote unquote caught up in that kind of work, because it could range from a marketing communications company to a printer to a financial services vendor. It
Sure.
can be
Yeah.
anybody, everyone, every single vendor. I mean, even Dines itself, we have to do a certain amount of work in this arena, and it's constant work. It's
Absolutely.
you have to,
Mhm.
and if you can't, and it's the unfortunate, and this is very hard for, I think, a lot of, in general, for any organizations, is that it's never just like, all right, I do this one thing and
Mhm.
I'm done. It's like there's this constant work that has to be done at all times, where it
Mhm.
becomes
Sure, but that's yeah.
exactly, where it's like this, and exactly, some, and tech
I
debt, and yeah, go ahead, sorry, yeah,
I was gonna say, I mean, it's upkeep, and that's something we'll talk about a little bit later when we talk about how
Mhm.
we work with it, is making sure that look at this regularly, that you're
right,
paying attention. Yeah. And
Yeah.
and
exactly,
lost opportunities also makes me think of not necessarily new opportunities, but you have current customers and you want to make sure that they're having good
Mhm.
experiences.
yeah.
Um, I
We
mean,
all know
that's
that.
yeah.
Yeah,
Go
the
ahead.
acquisition cost for a new customer is so much higher than maintaining a current customer, and
Sure.
you give them a bad experience. That's a huge thing.
Yeah,
So
I mean, even on like if you were a retail shop and it takes 10 minutes to run a credit card because you haven't upgraded your system, that's a problem. Or you're on Wi-Fi that's shoddy and you have to be like, hang on, let me run it again.
yeah,
People don't
Yeah.
really want that.
And I think
exactly.
some of the things that are less obvious, like to customers, would be the experience that you have internally as well. So if your employees are struggling because it takes
Mhm.
them forever to do their job because their tools don't work, or the process is onerous, there's the potential for them to look for other employment just because, hey, we don't have.
Yeah.
It's
It's
not. I
frustrating.
mean, I've plenty of
I've
people
worked
I've
on a
known.
computer with like very little RAM and just been like,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. As I
But
say,
then all
I
that's not even to mention, obviously, there's going to be some liabilities for
mhm,
unmaintained systems. There's going
Right.
to be security risks. I mean, we talk about this all the time. You can check out one of our security best practices live streams or
mhm,
webinars about security risks of not keeping things up to date and make sure your stuff is up to date. And then, of course, if you let tech debt go too far, just like any sort of debt, you could lead to bankruptcy, right? Just
Right.
yeah.
having to rip it all out and replace it is going to be a lot more expensive
And
in most
disruptive.
cases.
Yeah,
It's super
Disruptive
disruptive.
and
Right.
yeah.
just like anything else, if you don't budget for your lease, or your lease is up and you don't plan and budget for a move to get out, I mean, what do? You looking at the same thing. If you don't budget, if you have a tech system running your business and you don't budget to replace it when it's end of life, what do you do when it stops working? I mean,
Yeah.
Right.
you're stuck. You then
Yeah.
Now,
That's
now
our
you're at
goal.
the, now,
Make sure that doesn't
now
happen.
you're at the mercy of a vendor, or you're at mercy of someone to kind of get
Yeah.
it done, and you lost control, and you lost your
Mhm.
strategic kind of
Mhm.
planning and that sort of thing. Which, so and so in so many ways, it's like, how do you manage all this though? What's the management process for managing?
Mhm.
It's like,
Yeah.
all right, this is scary with this tech debt, but like, it's not like an unmanageable thing, right?
Yeah. I mean, we've got a lot of like really good, a couple like 7 principles that we're going to go over. We actually have a a blueprint that we're going to go into much more deeply on these. But I don't know if Justin, you want to take over what some of these
Yeah.
the principles of
Do
managing your
that.
tech debt are.
Yeah, the basic stuff that you're going to do first, you want to define what tech debt you have, and that's part and parcel with putting together the budget, your IT budget. We did have a download for that. We did our stream last week was on building your IT budget and how that applies to your company, to your organization. So really what you're going to do is define what tech debt you have, define how that applies to your company, define
Mhm.
what it's really the scope of what you're working with. You want to keep in mind that it's while it is obviously because it's IT, because we're talking about IT and tech, it really is a business question. It's a
Right.
business issue. It's not just the nuts and bolts of what pieces we are. It's figuring out the uh, where your company, where your organization is spending money, and how those things that you're spending money are
Right.
impacting how you work.
Mhm.
So it's important that in this process, it's not just the IT department. You need representatives from each of the departments in your from your business core.
Right. This feels very much like how business continuity is not
Yeah.
just the
Mhm.
IT, like I gotta get the server back up and running in 4 hours, RPO, RTO kind of thing. It's really like what's important to our operations and what's
Yeah.
important to maintain our customers,
Mhm.
maintain our internal systems and our internal customer profitability. So it's
And that's
stressing
related
that.
to the next point,
Right.
which is establish transparency. You need
Mhm.
to
Right.
make sure you know what's functioning and what priorities and things like that.
Right.
Mhm.
Um, what resources are consumed and everything.
Yeah,
So
what everybody needs to know what they're working on, and you need to formalize that together into something that everybody can agree on as these are the goals we have, these are the things we want to be able to do, and these are the costs, these are the expenses that we're going to have to undertake in order to get those goals. And then from there, once you have that formalized plan, you do need to have somebody dedicated to holding people accountable to that, to running through that, to really to own that as part of
mhm,
their job function, as to make sure that you stay on the schedule that you set for yourself, that you're reaching the goals that you set for yourself.
mhm.
It's also important that once you do have that, you don't leave it static. You do need to iterate and streamline. You need to make sure that you go through this process regularly to make sure you're staying up to date, that there aren't new things. If you take on a new line of business, that can change the entire plan that you have. You need to go through that process
Sure,
again.
yeah.
I
And
mean, the classic example,
If
Justin.
suddenly people,
Yeah.
all of your staff has to work from home for some reason.
yeah, exactly.
Or I mean, the one I always think is when everyone's like, "Well, we're moving, we're moving, we're moving, we're moving," and it's like 5 years on the road, and you put off these massive decisions that would have been, uh, that were just
Right.
impacting business operations deeply, but you're trying to hold out for this like very long term
Yeah.
solution as a mega solution. Like, hey, we're gonna get it one and done, but I think as we all learned, it's so iterative and
Mm,
it's based on just constantly
Yeah.
checking it on a regular interval.
Yeah, and
yeah.
I know that this is a lot, and a lot of like business owners might be like, well, but I'm not the IT person, or I maybe they don't have that person
Right.
at their company who's got you know the ability to be looking at this and analyzing it. They know their business side, but maybe they need a partner who
Right.
can talk to the tech side and cycle it into their business and figure out how those work together.
Mhm.
So the next thing I want us to move on to is what we do, about how us as a managed service can really help people manage their tech debt, and what that looks like.
Mhm.
So
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I do a lot of this all day. I mean, this
Yeah.
is what Justin and I, Marion. So, I mean, a lot of it just starts with this assessing the situation
Mhm.
from a fairly neutral perspective of like
sure.
what is happening here, and this and putting together a baseline, just
Mhm.
Yeah, well, that's like
understanding.
the first thing we do with our client life
Right.
cycle, right?
Yeah,
Correct.
every client that we're talking to, that we're evaluating whether or not they're going to be an MSP client, the first thing we do is an IT assessment. And yeah, exactly that, to get that baseline, to understand what they have, what their goals are. And it's not just the IT assessment is almost a misnomer, because it's not just, let's look at your IT and see what you have. It's definitely part of it, but there's also that business level discussion of what are your goals? How do you work? What are you doing for your clients? What
Mhm.
works? What
Right.
doesn't work? All those pieces, so that we can get a really good snapshot of this is what this company is currently doing, this is what this company wants to be doing, this is what is good, this is what is bad, and from there we can start developing plans.
Right. It's an analysis of
Mhm.
the of this point in time,
Hmm.
and a roadmap that will actually take you to where you want to go, and then have a baked in uh, kind of tech life cycle,
Hmm.
which I think which is the part that a lot of
Yeah.
that is overlooked. It's, when you build a new road, you have to budget also the maintenance of the
Yep.
road. Someone has
Mhm.
to resurface it and clean the sides, the weeds that they get cut, and it has to get painted every number of years. And
Mhm.
I think many companies and many people tend to say, well, how much does it cost to buy the road? But no one wants to know. People tend to overlook that piece of it. So
Hmm.
that's part
Sure.
of the managed services that
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
strategic planning.
And that
Which
is
is a
a reason
Mhm.
why, like, if you have your IT leadership or your IT partner, is that you want them to not just be looking at the break fix, not just be looking at the upfront costs or what we need now. They also should be looking ahead. You want, like we
Right.
mentioned before, you want to be innovative, you want to be growing, and you want to be able to plan for that with expertise. So,
Mhm.
I mean, that's part of, the tech debt is not just what's happening now. I mean, that's a huge part of it, but let's talk about what's coming up and what opportunities we're going to lose out on and all that stuff.
Mhm.
So that's something that
Right.
it's great to have a partner who can
Mhm.
talk you through that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's the next part of the life cycle for a client that we have in. Once we have them in through the assessment, and we're bringing them on as a managed service customer, and we do the initial remediation projects to pay down a lot of that initial tech debt that's there. We then build a plan. It's essentially a maintenance plan. Same thing if you were going to a
Mhm.
financial planner and you were buying a house or buying a car. Yeah, you're going to have that payment up front in order to get yourself in, or your down payment, but then you're going to have a plan going out for what you're going to do, and you're going
Yeah.
to want to include all of the maintenance for that. And for
It
us, that's we call it a quarterly business review. So it
correct.
means
Mhm.
once a quarter you'll have a review of what we're seeing for the next 4 quarters, what you've done, we see coming up, and
Mhm.
really to plan with the business, so that the ideas that the IT strategy and IT plan should be aligned with the business goals, the overall business goals. That
Mhm.
uh, if you wanted to, for some reason, work remote forever and get rid of your office, you want to make sure that your
Right.
IT plan is built to allow you to do that. And if you don't, if you say like, no, we're going to do this other thing, you want to make sure that your IT
Right.
plan is built to do that, and that you know what's coming up, so
Mhm.
that you can budget around that.
Correct. And really understand where you should put your energies towards. People tend to get caught in like things that may not be, they may look cool, but may not be necessary actually, or revenue generating for them, or could
Hmm.
be improvements in efficiencies. So
Yeah.
we always want to get that information, and this quarterly business reviews really understand it, and kind of take care of that, the underpinning work that has to get done to make sure that happens.
Hmm.
Mhm.
So um, I think so we have a really great webinar coming up on December 10th that's going to
Hmm.
cover a lot of this more in depth. It's called our Blueprint 2021. A lot of it's around our lessons learned in 2020, and how it's going to apply to our future. Talk a lot about this. We also have a number of we'll have a great roundtable discussion with some valiant customers. I think that would be helpful to kind of really understand.
Hmm.
There's a free S&B blueprint pack. They're downloadable. So we think there's some really great information here. We'd hope that people can check it out and sign up for it. So I think this is such a dense, complicated topic that, that as you start unpacking it, it's
Mhm.
definitely like kind of the Russian doll.
Yeah.
And
The
it keep getting
Matryoshka. Yeah.
smaller, and because it's so complicated, and I think that many businesses take a surface view of it, and it's like, well, it's just IT. I get email. I have laptops for my staff. It's working. But then, so far what we're seeing, the average company has between 70 and 100 applications they're using on a regular basis.
Mhm.
So so we really we think there has to be a better way of doing this. And we think we have a better way of doing it with our clients to kind of
Mhm.
help them get to where they want to be. So man, there's a lot of stuff. So just to kind of like wrap it up, tech debt is a rough thing. It can be catastrophic. We've seen it in customers. We've seen it. It's like an all day thing, like all the time thing, where it's like if you don't address it, you don't acknowledge it existing. It's like the first way to address a problem is admit you have one. So I think it's not the problem, which is that these are challenges that all businesses face, and we have to have good partnerships and good processes. So we have it; it's there. Get and working towards getting ahead of it. So with that, we have more information. So I think the place to start is check out that budgeting tool that we put together. I think that's a really great place to just even get this kind of get the juices flowing in terms of thinking about it and working. And I said we have some really great content coming on December 10th at the Blueprint event. I think people are going to get a lot out of that, learn a lot, and just from the conversations we're going to have with the folks that we work with regularly. I think that's going to be super, super informative for business owners and people who ultimately are responsible for IT and for driving their business to success. So, so with that, I just want to say thank you everyone for joining us today. I know we always went a little long today. We try to keep these a half an hour, but there's so much information here. And but please check out our link here. If you have a question, that's bit.ly VTQA.
Yep. Learn more.
Learn more about it, and right there's a lot of stuff at thevaliantway.com. We're on social, LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter. We post really regularly. We have a blog. Marianne has a tremendous YouTube page that she maintains with a knowledge base of just awesome tips and tricks of things to do, and deeper than that. And next week we're going to go into a little deep dive of some of the Valiant processes. I'm sorry, Marianne.
Next week is Turkey Day.
I apologize. I don't think anyone wants to watch us on Thanksgiving Day. No. So I don't think I want to watch myself.
You can watch me cook a turkey.
Exactly.
You could watch me watching football. So
exactly. So it'll be the week after. So and we have a great plan. We're going to go a little bit of the kind of the underpinnings of Valiant's process and some of the tools we use. And I think
a little preview.
Preview. Talk about Valiant. So. Justin, Marianne, thank you so much for today, as always.
Thank you.
Great, super informative, and stay safe. Bye, everyone.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.